Hi, Norman with iSaveTractors.com. Welcome to our newest video series, How to Restore Your Old Garden Tractor. In this first episode, I'm going to go over how to evaluate the condition of your tractor and make plans for the restoration. So you've wheeled your tractor in the shop, now it's time to evaluate the condition of the tractor and make plans for the restoration. Now when I get a tractor, the first thing I ask myself is, does the tractor run? And if it does, how does it run? In this case, this Ford 120 runs excellent. It starts right up. The starter engages right away. It charges the battery. There are videos of me actually using this to mow the lawn. So I know that the engine is in good enough shape to start right up and to run with full power. In this restoration, though, I'm going to rebuild the engine from top to bottom anyways for your educational purpose. Now, if this engine did not run perfectly, it would give me some hints on what to do in the future. For example, if the starter was slow or sluggish to engage, it would tell me to investigate the brushes, the condition of the commutators on the motor inside, as well as the solenoid and ground wiring connections. If the engine was blowing smoke or if it was not responding to load when the mower deck was engaged, it would give me clues to look at the condition of the rings as well as the ignition system. So those are good things to keep in mind. After I do the initial engine test, I always like to walk around the tractor and make sure it is complete. So let's do that. We're going to walk around and we're going to make sure all of the fenders, the belt covers are all here. A lot of times when you buy these old tractors, there will be parts missing, especially sheet metal type parts. But this particular one is complete. Now, all the sheet metal looks like it's in really good shape except for this part of the nose of the tractor right here. There's a crack. It looks like a previous owner tried to repair it. We're going to repair it in this case as well, but that's something to know moving forward. I believe this front is made out of a cast aluminum material, so it should be pretty easy to fix up. Now on these Ford 120s, the common parts that are missing are these PTO engagement covers as well as the battery cover here. If your tractor is missing something like this, for example, if this 120 was missing it, it would affect the asking price of the tractor when you buy it, and it would also affect how you go about doing this restoration. If you don't have any fabrication skills, it might throw you in for a loop. But I can make a lot of parts here in my shop, so if the battery cover was missing, that's a pretty easy part to make. This PTO cover is a little bit harder to make, but I would know that moving forward, and I would keep my eye out on Craigslist and eBay for a PTO cover. Now, finding parts for your tractor, I always tell people it's part of the fun and frustration of restoring old garden tractors. Sometimes it can be very frustrating to be missing a part, but think of it as treasure hunting. If this PTO cover wasn't here, I would be treasure hunting trying to get one. That's just kind of the way I look at it. Now, after I determine this tractor is complete, I do another walk around and I just check for leaks. That's an important part. I always start at the rear of the tractor and then I move up towards the nose of the tractor. Let me get some light on the rear end and let's check this out. When examining the rear end of your tractor, we want to look for leaks in 3 or 4 major areas. The first area is in this rear end. You can see where the two halves of the rear end meet. We want to check this seam here for leaks. Now, one of the ways to check is through a visual inspection and a physical inspection. Like right here, you can kind of see some of this wet debris here. It's not too wet, but you can see that it's a little moist. That indicates there might be a small leak over time between this seal. Also, you can take your hand and just reach under the rear end, wipe it with your hand and feel if there's any material there. So in my case, let me get this in focus, there is evidence of a light film of oil on the bottom of the transmission. Not a major leak, but something to keep in mind. Now let's check this axle over here. Now there's a seal typically. Let me see if I can get this so you can see it. There's a seal that keeps oil in the rear end and from leaking out the axle. And I can immediately tell there's an axle leak on this side. The axle shaft is wet, and if I run my finger here and push my finger against the axle and this axle carrier, you can see I pull out a little bit of oil. It's still not a major leak. If this was a major leak, you would typically see oil dripping down here, and there'd be typically an oil stain on the inside part of this wheel. Not too bad. Here, going to the other side. This side is pretty dry, so this one has no leak at all. That one looks pretty good. Now, another area to check for leaks is where the transmission pump meets the rear end. You won't be able to see it, but I'm going to stick my hand down here and feel around for any wetness. That looks and feels pretty dry, so nothing huge down there. Maybe a little bit of a leak. It's hard to tell while I'm holding the camera. Now after that, let's move to the front and check the engine for leaks. When checking the engine for leaks, it's very much the same as checking the rear end. We're looking for wet spots, and we're going to be reaching our hands in places and just feeling around for oil. Now you can immediately tell right here, all this black goo that I'm pointing at is all wet dirt. It's wet because of the oil, and the dirt is on there just from use. So if I were to take my finger and just kind of feel this, you'll feel this big thick piece of debris right here. And you can feel it's a little bit wet. That means there is oil coming from the engine and getting onto the frame. And the further back we go, we can see more deep wet spots down there. This is pretty common for, a 50-plus-year-old tractor. But, it tells me where to start. So this engine, while it runs great, there are some gaskets and some surfaces that need attention. I like perfectly dry engines. Oil leaks not only make things ugly, but it also affects function. If oil gets onto belts, it can cause slipping. If, obviously if you leak oil over time and your engine runs low on oil, it can lead to a catastrophic engine failure. So I like to fix all leaks in all my machines, and it helps keep your garage floor clean. So common areas for engines to leak, especially these Kohler K Series, is if your pistons are getting a little bit of blowback, it'll create excess pressure in the crankcase and start pushing oil out of the governor cross shaft seal, as well as the valve breather assembly, and in some cases even out of the gasket between the oil pan and the engine block. So something to keep in mind. Now that we've inspected for leaks, let's inspect the belts and the tires. Now, when inspecting the belts, we're not looking for perfectly good belts, because let's face it, this tractor is from 1969. The belts are going to need to be replaced. But what I'm looking for is evidence of belt wear to tell me if pulleys need to be replaced. So for the most part, this belt has pretty normal wear, but right here, there's if I can get in a little closer for you, the belt almost looks like it was cut kind of diagonally on this edge. That gives me some information. It tells me that the pulleys might have a sharp burr. There might be something sharp somewhere on the pulley system that this belt rides on. So that's something I'm going to keep in mind when I disassemble. I'm going to try to locate those sharp parts, file or sand them down, and make sure this doesn't happen in the future. Now, all these tires hold air, but it doesn't mean that the tires are in perfect condition. I believe these might very well be the original tires that came with this tractor. But as you can see right here, I've noticed this very large cut along this part of the tire. Now, it doesn't affect its air holding ability. However, it looks really ugly, and it's large enough where you can't really hide it. So in this tractor restoration, I'm going to replace both rear tires. Now, looking at the operator station of this tractor, we can see that the upholstery clearly worn, so I'm going to have to do some upholstery work when doing this restoration. If you don't know how to do upholstery work, you can always shop around locally and find somebody to help you with it. Looking underneath, it looks like it was mounted to this piece of plywood. This piece of plywood's actually in good shape, still nice and strong, so I might be able to reuse that. More upholstery here. Going to the dashboard all looks like it is there. There's nothing missing. It uses this kind of up and down choke system. The cable is moving freely. The throttle, same thing, moves as it should. So I can probably luck out in reusing those. Now the cool thing about this tractor is, or I should say one of the cool things, because a lot of it is very cool, this tractor has a cigarette lighter outlet. I don't smoke, but I think this is awesome because it's a sign of the times. Like when this was made, the decade that this was made, smoking was still in such commonplace and it was still everywhere. They even put a cigarette lighter on your tractor so you can mow the lawn and light up your cigarettes at the same time. I don't recommend that. However, it's a cool part of Americana, and I love little things like that show up on these machines. Thank you for watching the first episode of our new video series, How to Restore Your Old Garden Tractor. If you need high quality engine parts for your Kohler K Series and other vintage small engines, please check out my website, iSaveTractors.com. We are devoted to continually produce parts for your old, obsolete small engines. Also, if you love to collect and restore these old garden tractors, please check out my new iSaveTractors hat. It's a super high quality hat with a nice black and orange color scheme. It says iSaveTractors on the front with a cool small tractor logo. These are available for $19.99 plus shipping on my website, iSaveTractors.com. My name is Norman. Thanks for watching.